Trinity Fellowship. My name is Catherine and Kelsey, and I'm happy to see you all here this morning. We're having some major technical difficulties, so our speaker, Suzanne Gaulocher, went home to get an adapter for her laptop. So hopefully by the time I'm done with the introductions, she'll be back. Right, I will do that too. I'll do this all. Okay, so this is part of our summer speaker series, which is modeled after the Lyceum, which Thomas Starking, our namesake, took part in the mid-1800s. So he was a major speaker in the Lyceum, and thank you to Nancy Chaddock, who must still be, is she up here? Must still be downstairs greeting people, who alerted me to all of this. And there were other people on that Lyceum, such as Ralph Waldo Emerson. So our theme for this Lyceum is Cultivating Love. Our minister, the Reverend Linda Barnes, will be back in the pulpit on September 7th. So as is customary in our fellowship, anytime we have any kind of gathering, whether it's a meeting or a service, any gathering, we light a chalice. And we do that because that suggests that whenever a number of people gather and you have community, it's an opportunity for transformation. You will leave here different. Yes. The reading this morning for chalice lighting is by David Brennan. We light this chalice remembering and honoring our own tradition and celebrating the rich diversity of traditions among us. As we search for justice, meaning, and purpose, may we remember that justice, meaning, and purpose live first in deeply listening to one another. And I'm really happy that lighting flames doesn't require any technology. So this morning's talk will be on resistance as activism. How do we continue to build resilient and healthy communities while weathering political storms? Do you guys do that yourself every morning when you read the news? Or you just pull the covers over your head and go back to bed? We create opportunities to come together and foster connections, dialogue, and trust. Through authentic curiosity, active listening, and recognizing the value of each of us, we continue to shape our common ground. Perseverance in collective action is the antidote to worry, anxiety, and hopelessness. In this task, Suzanne will present ways to navigate today, tomorrow, and our future by highlighting the good work happening locally and regionally to resist dominant narratives that threaten the well-being of people and the planet. Art, education, public health, and sustainability can be forms of resistance, and we can engage in so many ways. Let's talk about it. Suzanne is an associate professor in public health and is the associate director for the Center for Healthy Communities. Before joining Plymouth State University, she directed the Community Engaged Learning Program focused on health at Stanford University. She holds a PhD from the University of Wisconsin at Madison. I know some people in this room were there too, where she was part of the Center for Sustainability and the Global Environment, focusing on the intersection of human and environmental health. She also holds a Master of Public Health from the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine and Public Health, and a Master of Arts from Oregon State University in Applied Medical Anthropology, and a Bachelor of Science, also from Oregon State, in Cultural Anthropology. Her research and teaching centers around the intersection between human health and the environment, with a focus on community engagement, social justice, and health equity. The first time I heard Suzanne speak was right in this space when she talked about why birth rates for Black Americans, why they died in birth when that didn't happen in their native lands. And what impressed me about it was that it wasn't just the facts. Like, she wanted to get underneath that. Why is it happening and what can we do about it? So when the Lyceum came up, I thought her name came to mind right away. And I didn't offer a topic. It was just because she's such a good presenter. Can you speak on anything? And this is what she chose. I'm looking forward to that. So since we have a few minutes while she's looking for her HDMI adapter, perhaps we can just go around and if you have any questions or things that you may want to ask her, maybe we can have one person take notes for when she gets back on how to weather political storms, how to create opportunities. I'll come around with a microphone and we can do that. So we're ready when she gets here. Because I know that part of this is she'd like to have a conversation. We haven't had our coffee yet.
Like an ice cream. Okay. I guess my question, how do you, after you have taken your head out from under the covers after reading, get past that sort of feeling of just being stuck? You know, and you know, you could have 25 different possibilities for action, but how do you get past that?
Okay, I'm gonna start taking notes here. Pencil.
Kathy,
Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you for that.
So first question, how do you get past being stuck? Was it somebody else? They have their hand up.
Yeah,
Oh,
and not only that, on being stuck, but what would be like the first question you would ask somebody just to engage some, not politically, but just, is there a good question to engage, say, a stranger?
oh, what just happened?
I was putting this up.
Oh, Suzanne. You're back.
So I got
Okay, hold on. We were just, while you were gone, asking people if they might have questions.
Oh, you're perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
so hold on. We don't need a screen.
Oh, you don't go straight up.
That's okay, it should project right now. So you have your adapter?
Yes.
Okay, good. It'll take a minute for the, so I introduced her, I hope I said everything right. How do you say your last name?
It's Gaulocher.
Gaulocher. Gaulocher. I think I said it right. Did I say that? I think I just said Suzanne.
That's okay.
But here's your mic. If you want to walk around, you can, sure, I do. You want to walk around, there's that one. All right, it should come up any minute. Whoa, something's happening.
I'm so sorry I was delayed. I did start trying to get the technology figured out about 8:15. So it's just everything that could go wrong.
Is there a mirror somehow?
It says it's mirroring. Maybe I should stop and try again.
You go. You can't notice at all.
Yeah, everything's set the way it should be. Yeah, it's this one. It should say election. This is on, that's the objectives now, so everything's right. That's the back. That's the back. It just hooked into the back. You use that one. So that's what it is. It's gotta be election PC. Let's see.
It shows my mirroring is on.
Is it election PC? Yeah.
All right. So, good morning, everyone. I'm Suzanne Gaulocher, and I was envisioning this morning would be more of a dialogue, and that I was going to print out these short documents that have some talking points and reflection questions, though technology, sometimes I just shake my head because it seems like I tend to want to go back to how it used to be and get a flip phone. So when Kathy asked me if I wanted to, if I would be open to giving one of the summer sessions, I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about. And I was reflecting on my own life and how easy it is to lose hope right now. And yet I was trying to think of a title that didn't really assume things about people's beliefs or perspectives, and landed on building critical mass through small acts of progressive action. So thinking about what we're comfortable doing and how we can engage in simple ways and maybe lots of different tiny ways that will make a big difference in the long run or build critical mass of movement. And I was inspired a long time ago by this book, which is by Paul Hawken, and it came out in 2007, and since then he's written a couple of other books. But essentially this book is talking about how small groups of people created this very large movement of progressive action, and yet they didn't know each other existed, and so it was happening pretty quietly, and this book gave me a lot of hope during a time in, politically when it's easy to feel like your actions or collective actions don't actually make much of a difference. And so that was my thinking going into the talk. And I am also inspired by Bell Hooks, who was an educator. And this quote I often share with my students. I work at Clemson State University. It is imperative that we maintain hope even when the harshness of reality may suggest the opposite. And I know that it's that there's been dark times throughout history, but it's really important to keep the perspective. So with that, I wanted to present a short timeline and think about what is progressive, what is progress. I'm just going to open it up to you all. What do you think in terms of how we would define progressive? Thoughts?
Well, I think of progressiveness as a negative unless everyone is taken along into a better place. So it's for the greater good of all. If you think about the advancement of like the trains, well, that was great for certain industries and, making the nation grow, but the lives of some people, were not improved.
Especially the people building the infrastructure. Yeah. Thanks. I saw your hand.
Yeah, I would say progressive to me is any acts that make things better, and that it requires that we be flexible, and able to look at opportunities, knowing that it won't be a perfect thing, right? So a lot of criticism when you're facing the idea that acknowledging that this would be better, not for me particularly, but for the group. Just to think about labor laws and things like that when they didn't have them. And for instance, Perkins, who just came up with all this stuff, and then she just shoved it down their throats. And so it seems like we've gotten used to having this stuff, and the idea of being progressive has become like liberal, like, oh
Right.
my God, what's your problem?
Yeah, you brought up a point in a way that I was trying to avoid using the word liberal when I was thinking about this, because words matter and words have power, and right now in this time, there's these, in public health, I teach public health, I think we see sort of a negative swing toward how we're thinking about these definitions.
So progressive is a great key sort of
Yeah,
parallel.
and it's, and I'm gonna come back to what you.
Yeah, avoiding labels. You've got a perfect topic. I've been literally going with this constantly lately, the past several months. But progress and progressive means just moving forward. And somebody has an idea and people go with it, just moving forward. So there's nothing, it's almost, it's a direction, but not with any specific definition.
Right, although it's, if we say moving forward, to what, and if we say moving forward for good, then it's for who? So asking those questions and.
I feel that progressive is also that the people of different colors on the earth are all equals. And it's really important in this country that the white people accept the black people as their equals, and we still have a long way to go.
We do. And
Suzanne, could you just repeat so people that are online can hear?
I was about what the original question was.
When people speak.
Oh, sure, or I can hand the microphone. Sure, I will hand the microphone.
Okay,
now on.
thank you.
So Gigi was saying that it's really about equality. A lot of it is about equality, race and racism, and addressing racism. And I know that I paraphrased your words, but I paraphrased your words. I hope I captured what you were saying.
Well, I said that progressive would be that all the people on the earth are equal, and that we thank you. I feel that progressive is that we accept all the people in this world as our equals, and that especially in this country, that the black people should be accepted as our equals, and we still have a long way to go.
Yes, we do. And so I'm gonna move down a little bit, and I did put the Merriam-Webster definition of progress and progressive down at the bottom of this document that I plan to print out for y'all. So really the definition from the dictionary, which I looked at a lot of different definitions, and I thought I would include the one from the Merriam-Webster dictionary is, so progress is relating to or characterized by progress, such as using, involving, or interested in new or modern ideas. So that idea of new ideas being pushed forward, and then characterized by continuous improvement or advancement, supporting the advancement of public good through government action. So that's one way, politics and government, and I wanted to now kind of pivot a little bit to the timeline. So thinking about when did the progressive movement begin, and I know that it's arbitrary, somewhat fuzzy lines, but around the end of the 1800s, we began to see people pushing for social change through government responsibility. So really trying to address corruption in government, big business, and corporate power and political corruption. So early progressive movement was focusing on things like the issues that were resulting from industrialization and urbanization. So worker exploitation, to go back to what Suzanne was saying, really thinking about labor laws, child labor laws. We used to allow children to work like adults, and they were not protected. And so thinking about the human rights and child rights that were improved through policy and legislation to protect workers, thinking about limits to work and then wages. And then we also saw, interestingly, and I didn't know this until I was reading preparing for this talk, was creating a livable constitution. So making the Constitution changeable to address things that are happening in society right now. So we start to see the amendments to the Constitution, and then early examples of progressive action are food safety, specifically meat, and women's right to participate in politics, questioning monopolies. And so these were really the early movements and the beginning of environmental protection. But we have national policies like the Clean Water Act and the Clean Air Act, and these laws protect health. I'm a public health person. It's like coded into my DNA, I feel, and really at the heart of that is addressing justice and injustice. And so thinking about how these policies protect everyone. Everybody has access to education. I love the word public, anything with the word public libraries, public health, public bathrooms, public parks. So the idea that everybody has equal access to things. So we started to see those things emerge. So then we move into more modern progressivism, and that is, we're starting to see the beginning of addressing inequities. So addressing things that were by design integrated into our society, things like racism and sexism. And I say it like that on purpose because it was intentional, and it was by design to oppress certain groups of people. And so we're starting to see people push back against that and demand change so that there is more equity and equality among people. And so we see modern progressive action is looking at economic inequality, so poverty. And interestingly, poverty is always coming up when I teach public health, because when you look at health outcomes and health determinants, there are certain predictors, things like income level, education level, race, ethnicity, where you live, your geography. And those things are really, they're not our biology. So they determine our health based on the social and environments and not our biology. So we have that focus on racial justice, LGBTQ plus rights, environmental justice, and then challenging systems of oppression. So let's see. I wanted to show this visual. I got this from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and it is it's the determinants of health. And I teach this, and when we're thinking about progressive action and the things that we can do, these are the biggies. Things like education, access, and quality healthcare, access and quality, neighborhood and built environments, social and community contexts, and economic stability. So these are the big things that are driving progress and working toward that common good for the public in our country. And so we see this recurring theme of addressing the social issues through the collective action, government intervention, reform, and specifically with environmental, economic, and social changes. So while we see that there's a shift over time, and we can even think, even in the last 10 or 20 years, the shift that has happened, there is this core belief when we're thinking about progressive action that it is about improving society, so the greater good. And so I wanted to, if it's all right, my real hope was to have a conversation with y'all. And so I came up with some questions I wanted to ask. And we can do this where you talk amongst each other and then we can share out, or we can just stay as a group. But why don't we, for this first one, have you just turn to one or two people and talk about what does progressive mean to you personally in terms of your values, your way of engaging. So just take about 1 minute or so, and I don't know if the Zoom people can talk to each other. And can the Zoom people talk to each other?
Zoom people?
Oh, there's no Zoom?
No, it's
YouTube.
YouTube.
Okay.
They're doing that for YouTube.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so just take about a minute or two and talk with a person near you and answer the question, like, what does being progressive mean to you personally? And it can be something you don't like. Okay.
My left ear is not good. Hearing is what is progressive?
Society.
It's so, I think so well, what is graphics? Public school, public school, good clean water. Almost everything.
Because some students are
Then there's so many hard so I don't you get some very
what town was it anyway?
What's good for you is not always good for me. And some people talk. And who's doing great?
Oh, they do. I can't
Who's good for me?
Handing out handouts. So, who else knows about
She'll push it back. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I know.
We're saying exactly that.
All right, let's come back to this.
Okay. Leave on my side of the track.
So,
See what it's.
does anybody want to share out to the group what y'all talked about?
All right, I don't talk all the time. This is just.
I love it.
Okay, well, what we were talking about in terms of progressivism is that it's something you have to, where you are using, you're thinking about other people more than yourself, and you're attempting to identify issues that would make things better for as many people as possible. It also means you have to be flexible, because what you're looking for is things that need to be changed. And that in situations like now, where those of us who've been privileged to feel like we grew up in a really free world are all of a sudden like, oh, maybe I should have worked harder on that issue. But that then we are obligated to work on things in a way protecting the people who all of a sudden discovered they're no longer safe, right? That we shouldn't expect LGBTQ people to be doing the work to protect overdeveloped, right? It's not, those folks are no longer safe. And work for progressivism means that we have to protect.
Right, it's 100%. I have a queer kid who is moving to Ireland. In March, yeah, particularly with her girlfriend. So definitely thinking about the safety of the people we love.
We kind of talked about like the difference between the historic definition and kind of like our personal definition now. So historically, I feel like progressiveness meant overall, even if not in this moment in time, we are fundamentally better off as a society than we were however many years or decades ago. Like progress is good. We have vaccines, we have antibiotics, we have healthcare. I think now, and personally, thinking about progressivism as we have the potential to fundamentally be better as a society than we were historically. We have healthcare. What does that look like to give it to everybody? We have the means to give it to everybody. We have automation, which like should be awesome because that means we should be spending less time working. So I think it's the optimistic hope that we have the potential currently to be better as a society and more equal and like happier than we were in the past.
Yeah, not working so long. The 40-hour work week was a part of the policy and the progress, yet it was still it's still too much.
In most of Europe, education and healthcare is free, and I'm talking about higher education. This is the richest country in the world, or at least one of the richest countries in the world. How come we don't have it for our people in this country? And I also want to make a comment about working. There are some places in Germany, I just read recently, where they have started a 4-day work week. And they found out people get as much done in 4 days as they do in 5 days, and they come back much happier and much more willing to work hard.
Yes, similar with Denmark and other countries in Europe having 20-hour work weeks, and people get the work done. You get it done. Thank you for those of you that shared. And so I want to move on to another reflection question that's a little more personal. I want you to do the same thing where you talk amongst each other, and I want you to think about your actions that you already take, but maybe also that you want to take, and think about why we may or may not engage in collective action or progressive action. And the reason that this is important is because there's oftentimes limits to what we feel comfortable doing. I lived in Madison, Wisconsin during the time when the governor of the state, Scott Walker, was trying to be impeached, and I really felt like and continue to feel that that was like an area in the coal mine for the paving the way for Donald Trump to make his way into the presidency. And at the time, never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that, but I just knew that the thing with Scott Walker was dangerous and that the United States wasn't paying attention to what was happening in Wisconsin. I was, there protesting every day, and it didn't work. And it just deflated me and made me feel so helpless and hopeless. And so when I think about my energy and the way that I want to engage, going and marching on the Capitol isn't something that sounds exciting to me anymore, because I did it a lot and it didn't work for me. And so when I think about, hey, what kind of energy could I use to renew my faith in citizens protesting and our right to, what's that word, when we engage in collective
Collective action?
act, well,
Right to assembly?
Association?
civil disobedience, but it's in the Constitution, it's being thread right now. It's like, I can't think about
Right to assemble.
assemble, right to assemble, thanks. Our right to assemble. So thinking about what actions, big or small, do you want to take to advocate for positive change? And again, thinking about like there's a lot of loadedness to even the way that the question is being asked in a way, if you really think about words like positive change, and what does that mean, and what, and who for who, and thinking about the people that might see things a little different from us and how they might think of positive change is different than how we might. And then, just think about what issues are important to you, what goals you think you could set. But you can start with the second question, what actions would you like to take? And so I hope everybody have about 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, depending on how many people are in your group, but make sure that everybody has a chance to share, and then I'll bring us back together.
I like ripple effect. I like the ripple effect. Little things reconstructed communities that were destroyed during COVID. What do we need more? It's interesting. That's the hardest thing any speaker does. Toastmasters. The hardest thing to do
For me, maybe not something wants to do, but I don't know, it's never been a culture violence is not the
That was another.
We don't understand. Well, it's all right.
All right, I will give the person talking a chance to wrap up. All right, so the question that I wanted to talk about Thinking about what you want, really thinking about actions you want to take. Oh, thanks. I always think, yes, or, right, yes. And if you didn't get to that, it's so, again.
we hear what you are doing?
Sure, I will happily share because I was, last week, my kiddo who lives in Burlington was home for the week because she had her week off, and I was telling her about this talk and we were talking about it, and she asked me if I would bring up her commitment, which is how she eats, and she's vegan and feels really strongly about being vegan for the treatment of the animals, but also the environment, but also to really artful like how she engages with people, and she would like people to be vegan. And so in some ways she's fulfilling the stereotype of how people perceive vegans, but she just feels so strongly about this and talks to people about it and has a lot of facts. And so I have a lot of thinking that I've been doing around, and I already don't eat meat, but I don't often tell people, I just don't. And so now I'm trying to make a decision how to, and I, don't eat very much dairy or other things, but I think that's something I'm going to try to work toward, is really reducing all of my intake of animal products. That's something that is really impactful to the environment, because even if you don't eat dairy, it's as disruptive to the environment as, in fact, maybe more so than meat eating. And so that was something that I am working on. And I also, I have a list at the bottom of the document about things that you can do, but things like speaking up when someone tells a joke that is embedded in systems of oppression, racist, sexist. And I know that this could be really hard for people, but one of my students taught me a trick that is so incredible, and it is when someone tells a joke, you just say, I don't get it, and then they have to explain it, and then in detail, and maybe hopefully reflect on how what they said is racist or sexist. So that's something simple, maybe not so simple, speaking up when you are bearing witness to an act of oppression.
I'm not a demonstrator or a writer of letters to the editor, but I do what I can in personal conversations. And I'll point out one thing, I'm wearing a pin that has a rainbow sticker on it for supporting LGBTQ rights. And I was attending a talk given by a woman at an organization from the Seacoast recently, and she said it has actually been documented that an LGBTQ person who is suicidal because they've been abused and mistreated, who sees someone wearing one of these pins, it can actually deter them from killing themselves. And I didn't know that wearing this, it's not just saying I support their rights, but it can actually, has been documented that it can prevent suicides.
So thinking about acceptance and how we can share with the people how we accept them is huge.
I am a demonstrator, and I feel pretty hopeless about demonstrating now, and I feel like there's no way for people in groups now to effectively fight or this evil that we're presented with on a daily basis. You know, that our old traditional ways of opposing certain policies, et cetera, don't work anymore. And so, you know, being a child of the 60s, that's really
Thank you, and I wanted to, Olivia had said, and I have this quote up here from Paulo Freire, one of my heroes, knowledge lives only through invention and reinvention and through restless and patient, continuing hopeful inquiry that human beings pursue in the world with each other and with each other. And so thinking about that engagement and that the act of having a conversation or wearing a pin, and then the unique ways that we have to engage now, if we find that the ways that we used to aren't as effective or accessible.
I feel pretty helpless most of the time, but some decisions we made looking around locally were to just show up. And I call attention to the issues with education and the schools, the local schools, and some of the things that have happened over the last few years. We started going to the school board meetings because there were people showing up that weren't from the community and were making a lot of noise and attempting to change policy. So we discovered that if enough of us cared, their voices were not so loud and the actual dialogue was better. And I think that that applies to a lot of things. We have to show up. We can't stay home and say, oh no. So sometimes it's a community meeting, sometimes it's something like a demonstration, sometimes it's meetings like this where we talk to one another, sometimes, people are going out and having those conversations with unlike people with views that are not like ours. I just think we have to show up.
Yes, on the first day of classes, I always start my first class with a quote that I read somewhere. We bless each other when we show up, and that showing up is essential to building hope, and it re-energizes us, I think, to come together and converse.
Yeah, I see a lot of anger and hate out there, and one of the things that you don't want to do is you don't want to hit the wall of anger and hate with more anger and hate because it escalates. By the ripple effect, however, dealing with people individually or in a community, and rebuilding a community and basing it on interest and caring and getting to know other people and listening, can do a lot more, because COVID ripped us apart, totally ripped our communities apart, and we changed the focus of where we were going with everything. And I think that just rebuilding in a slow, steady, rippling effect in a movement that would help to deflect away from the anger and the hate and starting to find common ground. Rebuilding that common ground, common interest. I think can do a lot more to go against this wave of anger. Think it as the riptide underneath it. To help rebuild.
Thank you, yes, and we know that responding or reacting with anger is ineffective, and yet it's so easy to do. And for me, I know that I want to learn, it's another commitment I have, is to learn how to have conversations with people that have different views from me without feeling that rage. And I think we do it by being genuinely curious, really trying to understand other people. It's very challenging when someone has such different views.
Hi, so I'm going to tell you all at the beginning of this that I'm trans because I want to explain how I address other people in my community. So it's complicated because when you're in a position like I am, you can't be reactive, right? Like you can't, and you have to meet people where they're at. So this past election cycle, I worked in an accounting office and I worked with a lot of people who have a variety of views. A lot of them are politically independent. They go, they vote, they unregister when they're done because they don't want to be told how to vote by their party, right? They don't want to receive mail. So I had a lot of conversations that were complicated, and I think the one thing that I learned is that despite the difficulty of it, I had to put aside all of my preconceived understandings of what was important to me and start with what was important to them. And I know that sounds hard, right? Like you can't center yourself when you're trying to reach someone else. So sometimes it was economics, when people say what's their greatest issue and it's always economics, it's not really economics though. So we start by talking about the economy and then we talk about healthcare and we talk about, this and that and the other thing. And all of my coworkers know that I'm trans, right? So I can have a conversation with them and say, yeah, abortion is a serious issue, not just for me, but for you too. Remember that? Think in your brain, like I can relate to you on this. And it's not that at the end of this, they suddenly saw me as more of a person, but it's that at the end of this, they thought that I cared about their issues as much as they cared about their issues. And I think that's what matters. And it's hard to say that, right? Like that's a scary thing, like how do you engage with other people? Well, the first thing you do is forget who the hell you are as a person. But it's true, because they will not listen to you if they think you're only talking about yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob, that was great. Something I did learn in accounting, which was amazing, that really applies to this. I was in accounts receivable, and we get customers calling that were angry. They were upset, their account was a mess, everything was a disaster. What I learned, which I should use more often, is I slowed down my language and calmed it down, and I repeated back to them what I thought they had said. And I asked them if that was correct or not. What ultimately happened was their voice pattern would start to slow down and their anger would go away. And then we could have a conversation. But it's a cool trick to repeating that.
Yes, I think even making a commitment to not get angry to the person on the other side of the phone, that's a huge thing because you're not putting that energy out there. And then thinking about what Jacob was sharing in terms of how we engage and opening up your mind to be able to receive what other people may be caring about. It's part of finding that common ground and an essential part of the progressive movement. So thank you. Does anyone?
I guess mine is more of a question to the group, and mine is more of a question because I hear what you're saying, and I understand that meeting people where they're at is really important, and so but it's the patience thing for me. I understand that you have these conversations, you meet them where they're at, you hear them. But then you walk away and did it really make a difference? And I guess as you get older, I guess you learn that you have to be patient and recognize that maybe they're not going to walk away with the exact same view as you, or they're not going to agree with you, but that you put a seed in their mind, and hopefully if they meet more people like that and you keep having those conversations, it'll grow, I guess. But I'm just curious with other people is how do you gain that patience to wait? Because it seems so critical right now.
Definitely. And I want to admit that I feel intolerant of intolerance, which is very ironic. And I don't want to be tolerant anymore. So sometimes I just don't want to engage in the conversations, and sort of like I've had it. So perhaps that's why I wanted to talk about this today, to hear y'all's ideas.
Well, having campaigned 3 times for state office, if you start out with a message, have a message. Now, what you're trying to do is convince somebody that they should change their minds is the important thing for most of these. And you've got to figure out why they don't want to have these things. And that's what you address. You don't address them for doing something. You address their fears and try to talk, oh, well, it's not exactly like that, there are ways around this, all this sort of thing. But that was the only time I had good conversations when I was campaigning, was when I was listening to them and trying to figure out where is this person coming from, and talking to that, not giving them my spiel, because my spiel is already set in stone.
Also being a listener, and you mentioned the impact of listening and then that we really want people to change their minds. And I just want to say that when you're wanting someone to change their mind, you're really asking them to change their values. And that's really hard. Not impossible, but it's really hard to get someone to change their values. And I know that for me, there's certain things I'm never going to sway. I'm never going to, sway on some of my core values. So someone that might think differently from me, they'll just be talking. And so, again, we have to have our convictions, right? At the same time, we want to listen and create opportunities for people to feel heard, and then again to try to find the common ground, because we are all mostly the same, right? We have some people that's missing.
Okay, so this is maybe a little off topic, but I come to protest and I feel totally frustrated with what it's doing. And we can have the chance, but that is angry. That's angry and that's putting up negative, calmer feelings. I think we need to come up with some good songs. I mean, you couldn't, amen. If I had a hammer, we can't do that anymore after Paul Pelosi, right? But we could do this in Shoreland. We can do We Are the World. And I'm sure there are some current songs that people could relate to. So we're not just chanting with anger, that we're sending out positive messages.
So I just wanted to follow up on what Barbara said on modulating the speed of your speech and calming down. So last week we heard how animals make us better humans. And one of the things she said, a friend of ours, and I asked this question, is doing equine therapy as for grief. And I'm like, how does this work? I didn't get it. And they said, well, the heartbeat of the horse is so slow that when humans are with them, our heartbeat starts to match that. And so I'm wondering now, if we slow down, like Barbara said, whoever we're speaking with, will they start to modulate and also slow down? So my message is, be a horse.
Or get a horse. I want one.
Did you want?
I don't know if anyone has heard MAGA people speak, but you know that it's a cult. And you can't talk to a person who's in a cult. I mean, their minds are made up. And there's just no sense of even trying to do anything. There's no discussion there. We have a truck that runs around the planet sometimes, and I think it comes out of Romney, I'm not sure. But it says F Biden. So you can't talk to people like that. So are we talking, maybe perhaps if you're talking to an intelligent person that maybe has ideas that's different from yours, and then all this makes some sense. But there are cult people, probably about 30% of this country. This is a cult, and they know what's right, and Trump can do no wrong. And that's the end of it. There's no discussion there.
It's an excellent point, and I tend to categorize people into three groups, and it's red light, yellow light, and green light. Green light people are my people, and the yellow light people are movable, and the red light people, I don't think that we can really do much, but I would be open to being convinced of one.
So I mentioned two things in terms of taking action and taking group action. The gift of the UU Church to me is that we are identifying and learning about groups that are making a big difference and giving everyone an opportunity to support them financially, and often the opportunity to volunteer. And that's a focus, right? That's not just in passing interest. So that, I think, because doing things together is easier. And the other thing is when I finally decided that, I ought to do something, I went to the No Kings Day. And being in a group was real exciting. done, right? And so then it's like, what can I do? Well, I have limits, right? So I can go to the bridges. So I've been going to the Plymouth Bridge every week from 4 to 6, and I can't anymore because work is going to be in the evening. So I've done the afternoons, I'm going to the 93 overpass on North Ashland Road. And the idea is, at least the messages I'm generally seeing are not hateful, and they're identifying actions and things that we want the government to do differently. And the other thing I'm seeing is, because I'm connected with the New Hampshire Bridge Brigade for Democracy. Those are a flamingly organized group. And these people who are gathering at bridges are having just more fun than you should expect. Right? And there's even a choir starting down like in Nashua that's a progressive group. And so the idea is, I'm not confronting anybody, and I'm just looking for things I can do with other people.
Thank you. So I'm going to try to think about the things I heard in terms of the small actions. So going to, what do you call it, a protest?
No kings?
No kings was the big one.
Yeah. And so thinking and having conversations. Other really quick ideas that you all talked about that were ways that you can engage in simple ways.
It's kind of like a follow-up for homework in a way that we just folks like wanted to think more about like the language we use when we're having these discussions. There is a book that has an audiobook called Cultish, The Language of Fanaticism, and it was mostly written before the second Trump presidency. So there is some reference to American politics, but it's a really interesting way of thinking about like the language of cults and like thought terminating cliches and kind of how that all plays out. And then there's also a podcast that is like a political podcast about winning elections, but Words to Win By Wonder Media Network is really good, even if you're just thinking about it in ways you talk with other people, even if it's not explicitly for a political message. There is one on the economy that I think is really good because it comes back to like, yeah, we're all worried about the economy, but we're not worried about like Wall Street in the same way. We're worried about how it impacts our families, our kitchen table discussions, etc. So I think that like learning and listening to those ways of talking and messaging, even though it's more for like a mail program or something, can really impact how effectively and we have these conversations in a way that connects to other people. It's data-driven.
Yeah. Did anyone have anything?
I wanted to speak to your question about patience earlier. So for me personally, like when I'm talking to people, like as a trans person, I always carry my community in my heart. And I always, since the election especially, I've downgraded what is important to me in terms of like fixing things, you know? Like I'm not here to change the world, but sometimes, especially on really hard days, I know that if I convince one person to hesitate before they harm someone else in my community, that's what matters. I think we can't all be heroes, we can't all be world changers, but we can ensure that someone hesitates. And it's very, very hard, I think, even for people who have been indoctrinated, to individually, one-on-one, do violence to another person. You know, it's hard, it takes a lot to do that type of violence. And if you can convince someone to hesitate, that might be enough. And yes, it does not sound like enough, but for me, that's the thing that I think about. Like I had a lot of conversations after the election too, and a lot of people were like saying to me, I don't understand, how did this happen? And I'm like, this happens because we don't have enough conversations where the sheer goal is just to get people to hesitate and think for half a second. And I think that for me, that's what helps me to maintain patience, is to know like, maybe this person won't change their values that I'm talking to, maybe they won't change anything about themselves. But maybe the next time they see someone who's gender nonconforming in Hannaford's, they'll say something in their head instead of out loud, and that is enough sometimes.
That sacred pause there, I think. I'm gonna go here.
I just wanted to point out that I feel like we have been divided. if you look at the way things are done, issues are sort of, they crop up here, and then the next day there's another issue that crops up that gets our attention, and then another issue that crops up. We're not putting our lives together in a way that makes sense. And so this whole focus on community is really probably where the most bang for our buck is.
Can I? 100% agree. Can I hear?
On patience, one of the things we don't do, and if you go into the reading the story, you might find out, somebody's talking at this speed. One of the things on patience is take a deep breath. It sounds really strange, but breathing has a lot to do with it. And we don't get enough oxygen to the brain, and one of the ways of doing that is breathing.
Through your nose.
Another speaker, so I think that. First, I wanted to talk about, I wanted to touch on Jacob and talk about commitment to community. And
Oh,
hi. One of the small things that I'm doing, I've decided to, just being here, reconnecting with my community. I feel like I put my head up, I'm just so overwhelmed by what's going on in our country now. So that I don't know what to do on a bigger scale. I don't think that there's much I can do there. So just reconnecting with my community is really important to me. Another thing is that all those new policies or those things that are overwhelming for us, the big picture, within Washington DC, all the new legislators, there are people out there who are sorting through all that stuff for us. The NASW sends out calls to action when they find one that's like, this is going to make a difference. We pay attention to this call to action. Anyone can sign up for those emails. So I'm paying attention to those calls to action. That's my small thing for that big scale that I can't handle.
Thank you. And kind of reiterating, you didn't necessarily say this, Jacob, but modeling. And then again, what you were saying also, so modeling the behavior. And when I teach at the university, and I'll say to my students, love each other and take care of each other. Don't talk about each other behind your backs. You need to have each other's back and care and love each other. And I am pretty convinced that just those words that I say on the first day eliminate any gossip for the whole semester that might happen among my students. And they really do look out for each other. And it's just, I set up the expectation and model it. And then something that small can be pretty impactful to a group. And then thinking about the importance of community, showing up and being in your community, it's huge. It's absolutely essential. And I think time, is it? I want to just really quickly, and I know that some of you did get the handout, but I did put a few resources, and small things is really trust yourself and think about, try not to overthink your perspective or your approach, and then finding others and building your community. And I just learned about this concept of Gaulocher, which is this idea of social isolation of the mind. And so really trying to address the social isolation of the mind that has happened more so since COVID, and thinking about really bringing ourselves back together. And so then, and this is again, comfort level, rejecting elected official candidates that might promote those systems of oppression, coming up with and having in your toolbox things you want to say. And for me, I know because I have that thing where I get so worked up when I'm having conversations with people that might not see things the way I do. I have, one of the things I say is, I see it a little differently. But I also, when I've read books like How to Be Anti-Racist, I literally memorize some of the lines that Ibram Kendi wrote in the book that I can have as just in my mind, or maybe even say when I'm having a conversation, and it helps me. And then thinking about how our actions might impact, our own actions, like the food we eat, our jobs, in engaged Buddhism, having the job that you have, how you make money matters. And so in terms of your integrity and your values and aligning your vocation and avocation. So speaking up when someone tells a an oppressive joke, and then obviously voting, participating in the democratic process. And I have one more quote. I'll end here. So we can draw from or even create hope through our connections with each other, building bridges across movements, recognizing our interdependence, and through decentralizing our power and organizing. And I had this in a presentation that on hope that I gave to my students, and I just pulled it out kind of at the last minute because I think that there's a lot here in terms of how we use power for good, how we continue to think of ourselves as interdependent and connected to each other. And so I know that I went over and I started late. I'm really sorry about the technical stuff. And I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was so great to have that conversation of what we can do. And we have a little gift for you. So this is a gratitude candle. And we have it at our house too, and we use it to each day at like the dinner hour to say what we're thankful for. And actually, even with all the doom and gloom, there are quite a few things I think to be grateful for every day. Yes. Yes. You're welcome. And next week is Josh Duclos, who will be talking about why democracy. I think that will be really interesting. And to close, I have a little parable that seemed like it would be really appropriate. Tell me the weight of a snowflake, a sparrow asked a wild dove. Nothing more than nothing, was the answer. In that case, I must tell a marvelous story, the sparrow said. I sat on a branch of a fir tree close to its trunk when it began to snow. Not heavily, not a giant blizzard, no. Just like in a dream, without any violence. Since I didn't have anything better to do, I counted the snowflakes, settling on the twigs and needles of my branch. Their number was exactly 3,741,952. When the next snowflake dropped onto the branch, nothing more than nothing, as you say, the branch broke off. Having said that, the sparrow flew away. The dove thought about the story for a while and finally said to herself, perhaps there is only one voice lacking for peace to come in our world. Whenever you think your contributions, acts of charity, works for justice, gifts of love, or your talents are nothing, or are small in comparison to those of others, remember that when one is added to another and then to another, great things happen from nothing more than nothing. So I hope you feel transformed. That's what happens in community, and thank you all for coming.